Hi everyone and welcome to Just Love. My name is Paula and I'm here with Judy. Hi Judy.
Hi Paula, hi everyone.
So Judy, you've been telling us of your contact experience with the boys upstairs, as you call them, your ET family. In our last couple of episodes, you've talked about how you originally got to know Maris and Serapis. So can you tell us more about the third teacher, Oris? I know you talk about Oris a lot in your book, The Zeta Message, co-authored by Helene Kaye.
Yes, Paula, it was actually through Helene that I connected with Oris, our third Grey Mantid teacher. Helene and her family, husband and 2 children, were not into New Age type stuff at all, but Helene's children both suffered from asthma and had benefited hugely from a couple of Reiki treatments done on them by a relative who'd trained in it. So Helene decided to learn it herself. She just happened to learn from the same teacher, Ian, that I'd learnt from, but I'd never met her at the time. Her family found the Reiki so effective that both her husband and children decided to be attuned to it. Within a week of their family attunement, some very strange things began happening in their home, including flashing lights through a skylight, unexplained beeping noises being heard, and a black-clad figure appearing in the corner of the children's bedrooms. Absolutely terrified, they called on Ian for help. Both Ian and I had used Reiki successfully on several occasions to clear negative energy from people's homes, so he went and did a Reiki cleanse for them, but matters only got worse. Ian was heading off on a holiday, so he phoned me in desperation, as he didn't want to leave the family alone in such a situation. When he described the figure that was appearing, bells immediately went off in my head. My teacher Maris dressed this way, and has never worried me, as I always thought of it being like priests and nuns wear black. I told Ian to get Helene to phone me, which she did the following day. When she called me, I immediately recognised her voice, even though we'd never met, so things were quite uncanny right from the start. I hadn't spoken about my ET connection with anyone much apart from Ian, so was a bit worried as to how Helene would react, but right from the start she was very open and accepting. An immediate trust was felt by both of us. She too had worried about sharing her story, but we had a long chat. The contact was centred mainly around the 2 children, Ben, who was 7 years old, and Kira, who was 12. I voiced my suspicion that it was ET contact that was happening, because from how Ian had described the figure who was appearing in their home, it sounded so much like my teacher Maris. I reassured Helene by telling her that I'd had this contact since early childhood and had never been hurt by them. What also convinced me was the fact that the contact had increased after Ian had done the Reiki cleansing. Reiki is brilliant for clearing negative entities because it raises the vibrational frequency, which negative beings can't cope with. The ETs, however, love it and are drawn to the higher frequency energy. As mentioned in our last episode, it was the Greys who introduced all of these energy healing and balancing techniques to Earth in the area now known as Asia, so they're particularly drawn to it. I often have them come in and help out when I'm doing a treatment. By the end of our phone conversation, Helene felt much happier, and a couple of weeks later when we met up, I passed a book manuscript on to her that I'd been working on that ended up with her contribution of almost nightly diary notes on the happenings in their home. This is the book we later published as The Zeta Message. The 2 children were still scared, but during a Reiki treatment that Helene did on her daughter, Kira managed to connect with Oris and got his name. And it all took off from there, with almost nightly visits, and Kira retaining conscious memories of Oris, taking her up on the ship at night for classes. And I often accompanied her to help her to feel more comfortable about the whole thing. She found it hard recognising one grey from another, and I was in my grey form, so I used to keep my hair on so she recognised me. I know that sounds really bizarre, but it worked well. Oris stayed in conscious contact with Kira for a period of 3 years, and during that time he provided us with a lot of teaching, including some extra information on Reiki, including an aura cleanse to use on clients, which we teach in our seminars. This aura cleanse is on our YouTube channel for anyone who wants to learn it. Helene got to physically hear Oris's voice when he was teaching this. Kira had expressed the worry that we wouldn't believe her contact with Oris was real. After I left that day, Helene wanted to practice the cleanse with Kira and write it down, as there are 13 steps involved, so it is a bit complex. Kira lay on the Reiki table and guided her mum as well as she could, but suddenly a loud and very strong voice, seemingly from outside the house, boomed out, "Keep your fingers together." This set all the dogs in the street barking, except for Helene's black Labrador, Shaka, who took no notice whatsoever. Kira went to the front door to see who had called out, but nobody was in sight, and running back inside, she realised that it was Oris's voice they'd heard. Helene had indeed had her fingers apart as she ran her hands down the body, and Oris had already advised us to keep our fingers together when doing Reiki to keep the energy more concentrated. Of course, Shaka didn't react, as he loved Oris and knew exactly who it was that was talking. More proof followed on another occasion when Helene was at the local shops. She noticed a very pleasant and friendly-looking elderly man smiling at her as if he knew her, but she didn't recognise him. She promptly forgot all about it until a day or so later, when Kira told her that our other tall grey teacher, Serapis, mentioned to her that he'd seen her mum at the shops and smiled at her. Oris seems to have more of a connection with Helene's family than with me, but I know that he too is an aspect of Maris and Serapis. Helene's husband, who was quite psychic, saw him in the hallway of their home one night, all dressed up in his flowing black robes. Both Ben and Kira are now grown to adulthood with children of their own, but still fondly recall their contact with the grey teachers who taught them so much.
That's lovely and very reassuring for others with children going through ET contact. Some parents worry that it'll have a long-term psychological effect on children.
Yes, definitely. This is why it helped Helene so much when I was able to assure her that I'd been there, done that as a child, along with all the fear, but came out of it with no psychological problems at all, and in fact the contact has helped me beyond words.
Mm-hmm. And it's also been so interesting to hear your story of the boys upstairs, your tall Grey Mantid teachers, Maris, Serapis and Oris.
And people can read our story in the Zeta Message book, co-authored by Helene Kaye, with much of it taken directly from diary notes she kept on an almost nightly basis. And Dr. Janet Colli, Ph.D, a clinical psychologist and author of the book Sacred Encounters, which is about ETs, was kind enough to write a wonderful 6-page foreword for us, which again is very helpful for parents who find themselves in this situation. So this book, The Zeta Message, is readily available from Amazon, along with our other books, Human by Day, Zeta by Night, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History, and my two most recent books, both Kindle editions, and both also available in German, An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET, and Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness from an Off-Planet Perspective.
Thanks, Jude, and thanks everyone for listening. Please share, like and subscribe. Sending you much love and bye for now.